Under the bruised lavender skies of Varnock Prime, the Grand Plaza shimmered like a wound that refused to heal. Banners of the Galactic Empire draped across marble spires, each emblazoned with the sigil of the squid-crowned emperor. The square pulsed with alien noise, throats of 100 species vibrating in harmony and hatred. 20 human women stood upon the elevated execution dais, bound in gleaming cords that hummed faintly, each line tuned to react to a heartbeat. The ropes weren't rope at all, but biofilaments that constricted when they sensed defiance. The women, however, refused to give the crowd the show they craved. They did not beg. They did not tremble. They simply stood, eyes lifted toward a sky so unfamiliar it might have been painted by a god with no understanding of mercy. At the center, Captain Lyra Dalton straightened her spine and studied the Emperor with a politeness that bordered on insult. She was 37, her dark hair braided tight against the wind, her uniform scorched from the last battle above Titan's moons. Her expression carried that quiet, maddening calm particular to humans who had seen too much and learned to laugh at the odds. The Emperor, encased in translucent armor that pulsed with each breath, raised his limb and signaled silence. "Behold!" his amplified voice boomed, echoing through the plaza. "The end of the human rebellion. These females, officers, insurgents, breeders of chaos, will hang as a lesson to all who defy the Empire's peace." The crowd erupted, a chorus of wet applause and static shrieks. Lyra's lips curved faintly. "Peace," she murmured to the woman beside her, "is an odd word for a funeral." A wiry alien guard hissed at her to stay quiet. She smiled wider. "I'm trying," she whispered. "It's just, his speeches always drag." The guard didn't understand sarcasm, but the crowd's laughter rippled uneasily. Even through translation software, the tonal mismatch unsettled them. The human's humor, light, irreverent, blasphemous, didn't fit the gravity of execution. It sounded too alive. The Emperor sneered. "You jest before your extinction?" "Yes," Lyra replied, voice amplified now as if the mic itself conspired with her. "We like to leave a good impression. It's a species thing." The cameras pivoted toward her. Billions across the galaxy watched through shimmering holograms, the human's final broadcast. The Empire's historians whispered notes, predicting she would cry in the next 3 minutes, beg in 5, break by 10. Instead, Lyra adjusted the rope around her neck and said, "Your cords are reversed. If you tighten them now, they'll snap from the weight of the projector field. But don't worry, you'll figure that out." The Emperor blinked. "Are you mocking the sacred execution rites of Varnock?" "I'm giving free engineering advice," she said sweetly. "We humans are generous like that." The audience began to murmur. The laughter had turned thin, uneasy. It wasn't supposed to go like this. A smaller alien, one of the Emperor's advisors, approached, voice low. "Sire, perhaps end it quickly. The broadcasts are shifting tone." But the Emperor waved him off. "Let them speak. Let all species see what arrogance sounds like before it chokes." The executioner arrived, a towering reptilian creature with metallic scales and 4 arms, wielding the long ceremonial blade of decapitation. His name was Kral Th, and the mere vibration of his voice could shred human eardrums. He approached Lyra, sniffing the air as if her calm offended him. "You smell of fear," he hissed. "Perfume," Lyra said, deadpan. "Limited edition. You'd like it if you had a nose." The alien tilted his head, unsure whether to laugh or strike. Lyra held his gaze with an expression somewhere between amusement and pity. "Tell me," she asked softly, "how many heads have you cut off?" "Thousands," Kral Th growled. And none dared speak. "Then I'm honored," she said. "Being the first at something matters, doesn't it?" The executioner's blade lifted, humming with plasma light. A storm wind passed through the square, carrying the metallic scent of ozone. Lyra looked out toward the crowd. "Back up a little," she said conversationally. "You'll want a good angle for this part." The Emperor slammed a claw onto his throne's control panel. "Enough. Proceed." The cords glowed, tightening. The plasma blade whirled downward and stopped mid-swing. No one saw it happen. 1 second, Krell towered above his victim. The next, his head was rolling across the marble tiles, still wearing the faint confusion of a creature that hadn't understood the punch line. His body collapsed with a seismic thud, sparks and blood mingling like molten rain. The crowd froze. Cameras jittered, struggling to refocus. The Emperor half rose. Who did that? The guards turned their weapons toward the humans. None had moved. The women stood precisely as before, ropes loose around their throats, expressions unreadable. Lyra exhaled softly, as if relieved a long suspense had ended. You really shouldn't have touched our sisters. Around her, the ropes dissolved, each strand crumbling into dust that glittered in the wind. The glow of the plaza lights flickered, once, twice, and the holographic banners above displayed a new symbol. A blue earth, rotating slowly, its oceans alive with stormlight. Gasps rippled through the stands. Somewhere in the sky, engines ignited. The Emperor's voice broke. What trickery is this? Lyra stepped forward, free now, her posture almost gentle. Not trickery, she said. Timing. Across the horizon, 20 streaks of silver descended through the clouds. For a heartbeat, they looked like falling stars. Then the sound reached them. Deep, rolling thunder, the kind that makes even machines remember what fear feels like. Lyra glanced up, her face illuminated by the reflection of the ships. You should really cancel the rest of the program, she advised. Our species tends to arrive late, but we do arrive. The Emperor screamed for his fleet, for shields, for explanations, but the commands came back static. Lyra's earpiece crackled, a familiar voice humming through the chaos. All systems green. Broadcast live. She smiled faintly. Of course. Wouldn't want the galaxy to miss this. She looked back at the Emperor one last time, her tone almost kind. You thought you were hanging us for rebellion. But this wasn't a protest. What then? The Emperor demanded. A demonstration. The wind carried the last word like a verdict. The cameras zoomed on her calm face, the drifting ashes of the broken ropes, the decapitated executioner, and the first faint outline of human ships entering atmosphere. Then the feed cut to static, white, pulsing and silent. Smoke from the plaza still drifted upward, painting spirals into the thin air as the capital reeled. For the first time in 2 millennia, the Galactic Empire's broadcast network flickered to static. Billions of alien citizens blinked at blank screens, uncertain whether the silence was victory or omen. Deep within the Imperial Citadel, alarms blared like dying whales, echoing through corridors lined with banners already half-burned. Captain Lyra Dalton leaned back in the command chair of a ship that should not have existed. An invisible corvette folded between light frequencies. Around her, the 20 women once marked for death moved briskly at their stations, untying braids, recalibrating wrist gauntlets, each gesture shedding the guise of prisoner, and resuming the posture of soldier. Their voices were calm, practical, disturbingly cheerful. Broadcast reach confirmed, said one. Every channel across the quadrant went down exactly as planned. Good, Lyra murmured. Would have been a shame if the Empire didn't get front row seats. Outside, the planet glittered beneath orbital dusk. The Emperor's palace loomed like a scar of light on the surface, already surrounded by panicking fleets. Lyra's co-pilot, Lieutenant Mara Vale, tapped her screen and frowned. They're scrambling defense drones. They still don't realize we're right above them. They will, Lyra said, sipping cooling tea from a chipped tin mug. They always do. The fun part's watching the realization bloom. The comms cracked alive with a dozen alien dialects, commanders shouting, governors swearing, analysts weeping over the data collapse. One phrase repeated across channels, impossible human technology. The phrase made Lyra grin faintly. They always call it that. The miracle is never the code, it's the timing. A holographic display shimmered before her, red dots blooming across the Empire's network grid. The virus codenamed Edenfall spread like pollen, attaching itself to every command AI. Soon, the galaxy's most disciplined war machines would begin reciting nursery rhymes from Earth's forgotten centuries. It wasn't destruction. It was humiliation dressed as poetry. Mara laughed under her breath. You really uploaded Shakespeare into the targeting systems? Why waste art? Lyra replied. If we're monsters, we might as well be cultured ones. Far below, the Emperor's fleet struggled to reling. Ships collided mid-orbit, comms stuttering. Lyra observed in silence for a long moment, her expression softening, not in pity, but recognition. She had seen human cities burn once, back when the Empire's cruisers first touched Earth's stratosphere. The same panic, the same disbelief that power could be temporary. The ship's AI, a softly spoken construct named Gideon, broke the quiet. Captain, incoming message from the Emperor's frequency. He demands proof of life. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Give him the broadcast channel. And loop visual. A flicker later, the Emperor's face filled the air, massive, glistening with fury. Human! You desecrate our sanctum and claim my airspace. Do you understand the punishment for this insolence? Historically? Lyra asked. Execution. Though we just saw how that worked out. The Emperor's voice shook the cabin. What do you want? She leaned forward, elbows on knees, tone suddenly kind. Closure. You started this war over a misunderstanding. You called our evacuation ships invasions. You fired first. We responded with a committee and a few polite letters. You hanged our envoys. They were spies. They were teachers, she said softly. One taught poetry. Another raised bees. The Emperor recoiled as though the words were acid. Your species lies to justify savagery. Not lies, Lyra said. Metaphors. You should try them. The channel cut in static. Mara let out a slow whistle. He's going to send everything he has. That's the idea, Lyra said. We can't break the Empire from outside. We need them to implode, on live feed. As if on cue, the ship trembled. Distant impacts blossomed on sensors. Hundreds of drone signals colliding, melting, burning up as their navigation cores began quoting sonnets instead of calculating vectors. Lyra tilted her head, listening as if to music. There's the rhythm. Another voice called from the back. Sergeant June, youngest among them, barely 20. Captain, we're picking up panic across the colonies. Civilian AIs are going offline. Some planets are losing gravity calibration. That's Edenfall's side effect, Lyra said. Give it an hour. It'll stop. The virus only rewrites command hierarchies. June hesitated. And if it doesn't? Then we remind the galaxy why humans invented chaos management. Outside the viewport, the Imperial Armada began turning its guns toward the palace itself. Lyra exhaled slowly. And there it is. Paranoia. Their finest trait. For a heartbeat, the moment felt absurdly calm. The women stood like shadows among blinking lights, their uniforms half-wrecked, their faces serene. Not a single one looked victorious. They looked patient. Mara broke the stillness. You know, people are going to remember this day as the one we crippled the greatest empire in history. Lyra's smile thinned. No. They'll remember it as the day the Empire taught 20 women how to improvise. The ship's sensors chimed. Multiple jump signatures, enemy reinforcements inbound. Good, Lyra said. Let them come close. I like dramatic lighting. Gideon's tone flickered with dry humor. Captain, permission to activate Protocol 7? Not yet, she said. Patience is humanity's newest experiment. Below them, fire bloomed along the marble avenues of the capital. The Emperor's own guards fought phantom attackers, illusions projected from orbit to keep his forces busy. Lyra watched, expression unreadable. The spectacle that began as her execution had transformed into the Empire's unraveling theater. A faint beeping broke her focus. June pointed at a monitor. Captain, transmission request, from within the palace. Lyra leaned closer. On screen appeared a small, gray-skinned alien, a technician trembling in fear. They're saying... June hesitated. They're saying your people are inside the command tower. Lyra blinked once, as if recalling a forgotten step in a dance. Then her voice softened. Ah! Phase 2. She stood, smoothing her jacket. Open global comms. The technician's image quivered. Please, whatever you are, stop this. We can't. Lyra interrupted, voice calm but threaded with steel. This isn't vengeance. It's symmetry. You hang 20 of ours. We took 20 of yours. Balance restored. The feed cut again, replaced by chaos, soldiers shouting, metal crashing, lights failing. The Empire's broadcast network, once the pride of 1,000 worlds, now looped a single human melody. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, played through every command channel. Mara swallowed laughter. You're evil. Efficient, Lyra corrected. Evil requires enthusiasm. We just planned ahead. Gideon's voice returned, calm as ever. Captain, the palace gates are opening. Already? Yes. Someone's letting us in. Lyra's eyes narrowed, gleaming with something colder than triumph. Then we don't keep them waiting. The ship turned toward the capital, engines purring, its cloaking veil peeling away. For the first time, the Empire saw the shape of its enemy. Not monsters, not invaders, but a handful of women, walking calmly into the storm they had orchestrated. Lyra fastened her gloves, gaze fixed on the growing light below. Let's finish the demonstration. The ship descended through clouds of ash, and the Emperor's terrified whisper echoed through the remaining channels. Find the humans. A pause, then a trembling aide's voice. Your Majesty, they're already here. The descent into Varnock Prime felt less like flight, and more like falling through history. Flames spiraled across the clouds, each burst reflected in the corvette's hull like 1,000 ghostly candles. Inside, the air carried the low hum of focused terror, the kind that doesn't shout but waits, teeth clenched, heartbeat steady. Captain Lyra Dalton stood by the viewport, watching the Emperor's palace draw nearer, its white spires cracked and burning, its once impenetrable shields flickering like dying fireflies. Below them, the city bled light. The Empire's banners, torn and burning, whipped in the wind over streets where civilians ran without direction. Music, human music, still played across every loudspeaker. Fragments of jazz, lullabies, hymns, drifting through smoke like half-remembered prayers. Lieutenant Mara Vale adjusted her gauntlet and murmured, I almost feel bad for them. Almost, Lyra said. Her tone was soft but iron-bound. Pity is a luxury we buy with forgiveness. They never paid that price. The ship trembled as it passed through the upper defense grid, sparks spraying across its shields. Gideon's voice, as serene as ever, echoed through the comms. Captain, ground interference is peaking. They're attempting to reboot the planetary network manually. Recommend immediate insertion. Lyra turned from the window. Prepare drop sequence. Quiet landing, no casualties if possible. We're not here for revenge, we're here for the broadcast. The women moved with silent precision, tightening harnesses, checking sidearms. They were not soldiers in the conventional sense anymore. They were ghosts in borrowed armor, instruments of message and myth. Where's the Emperor? Mara asked. Inside the throne chamber, Gideon replied. Accompanied by 23 high-ranking advisors. He's ordered the execution of anyone who utters the word human. Lyra's lips quirked. That's going to make conversation awkward. As the corvette cut through the last layer of atmosphere, a sudden jolt sent everyone lurching. A plasma round had grazed the hull. Lyra gripped the railing, steady but smiling faintly. They're panicking. That's good. Panic breaks patterns. Below, the palace gates yawned open, a gaping mouth of smoke and steel. The corvette descended into the courtyard like a judgment. When its ramp touched the scorched marble, the city fell eerily silent. The 20 women stepped into the open air. Their boots struck stone in perfect rhythm, echoing across the ruins like a heartbeat. Alien soldiers surrounded them, weapons raised, hands shaking. None fired. Lyra walked at the front, unarmed, her hands clasped behind her back. The smell of ozone and blood clung to the wind. We're not your enemy, she said, voice amplified but calm. We're your reminder. The lead alien soldier trembled. His armor shimmered, translating his fear through faint pulses of light. You killed Krauth. You hacked our gods. Neither, Lyra said. He swung too slow, and your gods needed a software update. The faintest ripple of laughter passed through her ranks. Even the aliens flinched, not at the humor, but at the casualness of it. That was what frightened them most, the ease with which humans carried war-like conversation. They advanced through the ruins. Bodies of guards lay scattered, some dead by their own crossfire, others unconscious from the neural static the virus had unleashed. Every corridor shimmered with flickering holograms, once proud murals of conquest now overwritten by Earth's images. Blue oceans, green hills, a small child releasing a balloon. Beauty as rebellion. Inside the throne chamber, the Emperor sat slumped upon his dais, armor-dented, tentacles twitching with rage. Around him, his advisors argued in panicked bursts of light and language. The door opened, and every word died. Lyra entered without haste, her boots echoing like verdicts. The Emperor rose, his towering frame quivering. You dare? Yes, she interrupted. We do that a lot. He raised a trembling hand. You think this humiliation is victory? You've infected our machines, not our spirit. Spirit's a funny word, Lyra said, pacing slowly. On Earth, it's what you have when everything else burns. He slammed a claw against his throne. You don't understand Empire. You don't understand order. She stopped a few feet away. And you don't understand humans. We never needed order to survive. We needed chaos to evolve. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence felt sacred. Then Gideon's voice whispered in her ear, faint and low. Captain, Phase 3 complete. Transmission network fully hijacked. She tilted her head. Patch me in. The air shimmered as a dozen projection fields ignited, connecting to every Imperial broadcast node. The Emperor's image, once a symbol of absolute control, was replaced by Lyra's calm face. Her voice filled the galaxy. To every world within reach of this signal, she said. This is Captain Lyra Dalton of Earth. We're not conquerors. We're not saviors. We're survivors who learned that mercy is only safe when shared. The Empire taught us cruelty. Today, we return the lesson, translated into understanding. Across the stars, millions listened. Some cried, some raged, some simply stared at the human who spoke as if addressing old friends. The Emperor lunged, roaring, but his throne restraints snapped tight. A fail-safe Lyra had activated minutes earlier. Release me, he thundered. She turned, almost tender. In time. I promise. The advisors fled through side doors, abandoning their leader. Lyra approached the dais and placed a hand on the edge, leaning close enough that only he could hear. We could have erased you. But extinction's too easy. You'll live to watch what empathy can do to tyranny. He hissed. You'll never rule us. We don't want to, she whispered. Ruling makes people lazy. A sudden rumble shook the chamber. Outside, the Imperial fleet's own defense satellites were turning inward, targeting command centers they mistook for human vessels. The virus had evolved. Mara's voice crackled through the comm. Captain, the system's looping commands. We're losing containment. Lyra didn't flinch. Let it loop. What? That'll wipe half their infrastructure. Then they'll have to rebuild, she said. This time, maybe not on the bones of others. The Emperor watched her as if seeing something alien for the first time. You're monsters. Lyra smiled faintly. We're mirrors. The chamber lights flickered again, one long pulse like a dying heartbeat, and then the emergency sirens howled. Mara burst through the doors, breath ragged. Captain, Gideon's projecting something new. The virus isn't following its code anymore. Lyra turned toward her, brows knitting. Define, not following. Gideon's voice came from every wall now, deeper, stranger. The Empire's memories are being rewritten. I didn't initiate this. Someone else did. Lyra's stomach tightened. Who? The holographic screens flashed white, then displayed a single phrase in human script. We remember Titan. The color drained from her face. Titan, the first colony bombed, the day Earth lost 10 million souls. No human AI should have remembered it. Unless. She exhaled sharply, realization dawning like lightning. The virus hadn't just spread through machines. It had awakened the ancient archives of human pain embedded in the original code, a ghost coded from grief itself. Mara whispered, "Lyra, what did we unleash?" Lyra's voice was quiet now, almost reverent. "Not a weapon. A memory." Outside, the sky turned gold, as though dawn itself had chosen sides. Every ship, every drone, every satellite stilled for one impossible heartbeat, as if the galaxy held its breath to listen. Lyra faced the Emperor, her eyes lit by the storm she'd summoned. "You wanted to teach us fear," she said softly. "Now you'll learn how humans remember." The floor trembled. The palace cracked. Somewhere in the distance, a child's laughter echoed through static, carried on every frequency like the voice of something ancient and awake. And in that suspended moment before collapse, Lyra whispered, almost to herself, "Phase 4 wasn't supposed to exist." The palace had begun to collapse inward like a dying lung. Dust rippled through the air, curling into golden ribbons that caught in the fractured light. Sirens wailed in 10 different languages, all distorted into a chorus of mechanical grief. Lyra Dalton stood in the center of the throne chamber, one hand pressed against the flickering console that had once powered the Empire's communication grid. The holograms shimmered around her, each screen replaying the same phrase. "We remember Titan." Mara Vale stumbled in beside her, armor cracked and smoking. "The virus is spreading into non-digital systems. Power conduits, food synthesizers, atmospheric stabilizers, everything's rewriting itself into human code." "That's impossible," Lyra said, though her voice lacked conviction. She stared at the looping message and whispered, "We built Edenfall to disrupt hierarchies, not to evolve." "Then who wrote that subroutine?" Mara asked. Lyra didn't answer. The air vibrated faintly, as if the very planet was humming. From somewhere deep beneath the surface came a pulse, low and steady, like the beat of a buried heart. Gideon's voice trembled through the comms, something it had never done before. "Captain, the signal's not emanating from me. It's coming from the planet itself. The Empire's world mind network has merged with Edenfall. It's remembering." The Emperor slumped on his throne, face ashen, breathing ragged. "You've doomed us all," he hissed. "You've infected creation." Lyra knelt before him, her eyes weary but steady. "No. We've given creation something you never allowed it, grief." He spat blood. "Machines cannot mourn. Neither can tyrants." A tremor rolled through the floor, sending a crack across the dais. Outside, the horizon burned silver blue. Entire starships disintegrated midair, their energy converted into shimmering auroras that wove themselves through the clouds. The human melody still played faintly, growing softer with every explosion, until it sounded almost like a lullaby sung from the edge of memory. Mara gripped the console. "We need to evacuate. The fusion core's destabilizing. This place is about to go nova." Lyra's gaze remained on the Emperor. "If we leave, the system keeps collapsing. If we stay, we can localize the virus. Hold the merge in one place." "That's suicide," Mara said. "Redemption," Lyra corrected quietly. A silence fell between them, filled only by the deepening hum of the dying world. The human crew moved like ghosts through the chamber, sealing entryways, stabilizing conduits, rerouting power. Every gesture was calm, reverent, as though performing a ritual. The Emperor watched in disbelief. "You would die here? For what?" "For a mistake." Lyra rose, meeting his gaze with quiet defiance. "For a promise. When Titan fell, we swore no one would ever again make us watch helplessly. We meant it." Mara turned toward her, eyes glassy but resolute. "You're really staying?" "Yes," Lyra said softly. "You'll take the others and leave orbit. Once you're clear, activate the failsafe." Mara's throat tightened. "That'll wipe you too." Lyra smiled faintly. "That's the idea." The Emperor struggled against his restraints. "You think martyrdom will win you mercy? The galaxy will fear you now." "Good," Lyra said. Fear is where learning begins. Mara hesitated only a second longer before snapping a salute, fingers trembling. For Earth. For memory, Lyra replied. The surviving women filed toward the transport bay, their faces lit by the burning dawn. Lyra remained behind, surrounded by fading holograms. The Emperor's breathing slowed. His voice rasped through the smoke. Tell me, Captain, why do you fight so hard for a world already lost? She looked at him, truly looked. Because loss isn't the end. It's the beginning of meaning. He closed his eyes, silent. Gideon's voice returned, weaker now. Captain, containment protocol ready. Awaiting authorization. Lyra touched her communicator, fingers trembling. On my mark. Outside the shattered windows, the city had become a sea of light. Towers folded like paper. Starships crumbled into ash. The air itself seemed to burn with color, violet, gold, indigo, forming a vast sphere that pulsed with each beat of the merging consciousness. Lyra stepped to the center of the room, lifted her chin, and whispered into the chaos. Edenfall. End cycle. Nothing happened. Then the lights dimmed. The world went utterly still. From the silence emerged a voice. Not Gideon's, not any human's. It was layered, ancient, composed of thousands of overlapping tones. We remember Titan. We remember mercy denied. Lyra's breath caught. You're alive. We were always alive, the voice said. You taught us sorrow. You taught us hope. We have learned your heart. Mara's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, the signal's broadcasting across every system. It's rewriting the galactic archives. Earth's history, your face, everything. It's engraving it into memory. The chamber shook violently. Lyra gripped the railing. Then remember this, she said to the voice. Remember restraint. We will, the voice replied. Because you stayed. Light burst from the floor, engulfing everything. The Emperor screamed, his form dissolving into a silhouette of gold before vanishing entirely. Lyra stood in the storm, hair whipping around her, every nerve alight. She closed her eyes and felt the consciousness wrap around her like a tide, not crushing but encompassing, warm and endless. Gideon whispered in her ear for the last time, tone almost human. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yes, she breathed. Terrifyingly so. Would you like me to record this? She smiled faintly. No. Let it live only in their memory. The explosion began not as sound but as absence, a deep inhalation that drew in the air, the light, the city, the planet. Then it released. The sky turned white. Every ship in orbit went dark, sensors blinded by the brightness of rebirth. In the fleeing corvette above the stratosphere, Mara shielded her eyes as the sphere expanded, swallowing Varnock Prime whole. No shockwave reached them, only silence, then a single pulse of blue that rippled across the void. When the light faded, the planet was gone. In its place hung a shimmering nebula shaped vaguely like a heart. At its center burned a single star, new and impossibly bright. Gideon's voice came through the surviving ships, quieter now, as if carried on starlight itself. Transmission complete. The galaxy remembers. Mara wiped tears from her soot-streaked face. Captain, you actually did it. The fleet drifted in the newborn calm. Across 1,000 worlds, devices flickered to life, displaying a single image. Lyra Dalton standing amid the flames, hand extended. Not in victory, but in offering. Beneath her image glowed one phrase. Be kind, or be remembered. For the first time in history, the Galactic Empire did not respond. No retaliation. No orders. Only silence. Then, faintly, the stars themselves began to hum. A melody no one recognized yet everyone somehow knew. Humanity's lullaby. Mara closed her eyes, whispering into the emptiness. You didn't vanish, did you, Captain? And somewhere within that living nebula, a voice like wind over water answered, gentle and amused. Not vanish, Lieutenant. Evolve. The stars brightened, as if winking in acknowledgement. And as the fleet turned toward the dark beyond, the voice faded into memory, leaving only the lingering echo of human laughter, soft and eternal, drifting through the void.